Hello and welcome to another Middle-earth painting tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to paint a Dapple Grey horse up to tabletop standard. So we are going to start with a base coat of Administranum Grey in 1:1 ratio with water. And this is going to be over a base coat of white primer. You can use whatever brand you want, GW or not. We did use GW for this one, but the result will be the same. Once that coat of Administranum Grey has had a chance to dry, we're going to come in with a wash of Dawnstone. You're going to have to make this yourself. There isn't any Dawnstone wash, but I just added some Lamia Medium until I had about the consistency of a wash, such as Nuln Oil, and we're going to apply this all over the miniature. Once your wash is dried, we're going to take Uthwan Grey and we're going to glaze this. This means that we're doing about a 2:1 ratio of water to paint and just focusing on the high points on the miniature. Again, this is going to look really stark if you watched our tutorial on how to paint brown horses. It's the same thing. Once it has a chance to dry and blend into the other colors on the horse, it's going to look fine. So don't be too alarmed that it's very, very stark contrast. It'll dull down when it dries. But we want the consistency of a glaze to go over most of the miniature, focusing again on the high points on the muscle. Now that it's had a chance to dry, you can see that it's toned down quite a lot. And what we're going to be doing is using our Administranum Grey again and a little piece of sponge. You can get these from blister packs or an actual sponge will work. But we want to dip it into the paint on a palette and then try to get off a lot of the color off of the sponge. So it's almost like a dry brush is the amount of paint that's on the sponge. And we're going to just be stippling this on the rear of the horse, the flanks, and this is going to give us our stippling. That should dry pretty quickly because there's not actually a ton of paint involved. And now we're going over with just a little bit of Dawnstone, focusing on the same areas that we were before. So depending on the sponge that you use and the amount of paint that you leave on the sponge, you can get different effects for the dappling. This is just a much more conservative amount. We're going to use Dawnstone now to paint the mane and the tail. Once Dawnstone is dried, we're going to use Administranum Grey. To do an edge highlight, we're using just the edge of the brush and trying to pick out all of the loose strands of hair on the tail and the mane. Now we're going to take Nuln Oil and go over the tail and the mane. This is just to blend the two colors together. We're going to go back to Administranum Grey now and re-highlight up the tail and the mane. This is just to add the final layer of highlight. This next step requires a pretty steady hand and probably is not needed for tabletop standard, but we're going to take some Scale 75 flat black and then some Marrow white from P3's line and dot the eyes of the horse. We're going to paint the hooves with a base coat of Carrick stone mixed with a 1-to-1 ratio of water. This paint is a little bit thick, so you definitely want to do 2 coats if you have to, because we don't want to build up the paint and lose that definition between the hoof and the bottom of the foot. We're just going to tap each hoof with a little bit of Agrax Earthshade now to just give a little bit different color variation and give us depth again in the different spot between where the foot starts and the hoof starts. We want that groove to be accented. We're going to take Bugman's Glow and dab this in the nostrils and also the inside of the ears of the horse, and then we're going to use some Reichling Flesh Shade as a wash over the top of it. Next, we're going to take some Ushabti Bone, and we're going to use this as the edge highlight on the hooves. This just, again, give it a little bit more texture, a little bit more depth, and give it the highlight on the bottom of the hoof. And there you have it, a tabletop standard, ready to go, gray dappled horse. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and you'll tune in next time. We're going to be continuing Rohanuary with another painting guide on how to paint a different color horse.